Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I'm the chair of the panel and my name is Annalise Tour. Joining me today via video conference are Oliver Klein and Kevin Hoffman as expert members, and the community representative is Kerry Hamer. The panel has individually undertaken an inspection of the item on today's agenda and been provided with an assessment report prepared by council staff, who have also briefed the panel on the application. Today we have 2 speakers registered to address the panel. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes and any extension of time will be at my discretion as chair. The panel has been provided with copies of all submissions in response to the public exhibition of the application and forward a copy of late correspondence. Therefore, there is no need to repeat all the points made in those submissions. Please focus on the key points you wish us to understand and consider. The applicant may wish to address issues raised in Council's report, including the response to conditions and issues raised by an objector. We may ask questions of the speakers to clarify, or of other people who have registered to listen, to clarify our understanding of what is being said. We expect that each speaker will be heard in silence while they are addressing the panel, and that courtesy and respect will be observed throughout this teleconference. I ask that everyone mutes their microphones unless they are called on to speak, noting that we have the ability to mute all attendees or individuals. After hearing from the speakers on all the items, the public meeting will be closed and the panel will then deliberate and make our decision. The minutes of the panel decision, including our reasons, will be available on Council's website as soon as possible after the public meeting. You should be aware that panel meetings are recorded and the audio recordings will be uploaded to Council's website. Each member of the panel has been asked prior to the meeting to advise whether they have a conflict of interest to declare in relation to any item on the agenda, and I can confirm that no conflicts of interest have been declared. So the only item we have on the public meeting agenda is for 2 Barrett Place, Randwick, and I understand that it's Caroline Harrogate, sorry, I didn't get that right at all.
All right, close enough.
Is speaking on your own behalf and as well as for Maria Biglianti.
Correct.
Thank you. So can you address the panel now? Thanks.
Thank you. So while Maria and I have done joint submissions, I'd just like to point out that the impact on our properties are quite different. For my property at 4 Barrett Place, we've lost privacy to all outdoor area. So all our private outdoor space has been removed, and the kitchen, living room and dining room. For Maria, she's lost privacy to a living room and first floor bedroom, and sunlight to living room and front garden. We've reviewed Council's report and find it lacking important information and events, particularly the notification process. We appreciate we've sent through a large number of additional documents to the panel, but this is reflective of Council's many omissions. We're concerned that without complete understanding of the history, the panel will not be properly informed, and this would undermine our ability to determine this application fairly. We received no written notification for the amended plans. Emailed this morning is a screenshot of the Council DA page taken in early July 2020. No amended plans, a notification date of the 12th of November 2019 and a determination date of the 22nd of November 2019. Even if we had received notification, available plans did not include the roof terrace. Had Council properly notified the application, we would have objected like Knox Street residents, and the same consideration would have been given by Perry Head, and he would have rejected the terrace. It's clear from an email exchange between Senior Planner Perry Head and myself, he intended the approval to limit the garage roof to a green roof and not for recreational use. These conditions were omitted from the approval, unlike 9 Knox Street, Clovelly. Both of these submissions were on Perry's desk at the same time. We're disappointed Council paid Knox Street residents more care and thought than ourselves. Recognising Council were unwilling to impose the correct conditions on this 455 And at the request of council, we have submitted compromises several times, having made many telephone conversations, meetings and site visits from multiple council staff. We find the conditions within the report lacking and are not reflective of statements made during those interactions. We ask the panel members to support our modification requests submitted on the 9th of December 2021 and impose those conditions to protect the enjoyment of our homes. The proposed marginal reduction in area would not have an adverse impact on the applicants.
Just keep going, sorry about that.
All right. Sorry, the proposed marginal reduction in area would not have an adverse impact on the applicant's property, as they did not have the garage roof as a recreational area prior to renovation. They also have almost 40 square metres of front lawn and a children's playground across the road of Barrett Place. The applicants now seek retrospective approval for unauthorised work following a stop work order from council and refusal by the PCA to issue an OC. This approval could have been sought on the first section 455 submitted on the 9th of the 7th, 2020. It is clear the applicant/architect had two sets of plans and no intention of building in accordance with the DA.
I'll just interrupt you because you are over time, but I presume you need an extension.
A few lines.
Oh, is that all? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
They have not complied with construction certificate, occupational certificate, or stop work order rules. Recent drawings submitted to the council by the applicants are not to scale, and council still doesn't have detailed, accurate plans to assess. Please review sketch plans on page 24, figure 13. It is drawn on grid paper, purports to be to scale, is drawn by an architect, yet there are two very different lengths that are approximately 1.7 metres long. We still don't have accurate plans after multiple requests, and the panel shouldn't rely on a sketch plan so obviously inaccurate as the main condition of consent. In this light, we request council not to approve this DA as they can't be sure how the amended works will look visually. We request the decision be deferred until these plans are provided.
Thank you. I'll just see if panel members have any questions. Any questions?
If I may.
Yes.
Chair. On the plan you're referring to, I can see the two dimensions, which are shown as 1.72 and one is 1.74 metres long, and they're clearly nowhere near the same length.
Yes.
So I can understand your concern that the drawing is not accurate. Another thing on that plan that can interest me is the deck. Now, as I understand it, I haven't seen any objection to the deck. It's mainly the garage, but the
deck is lower. The deck is probably good 600 or 700 mils lower, and there are probably about 4 or 5 steps up to the garage roof area.
Yes, so it doesn't create a privacy issue for you.
The deck?
The deck, yeah.
No, we haven't got a problem with the deck.
Okay, all right. Now, the privacy screen that's now proposed, is that adequate, or does it need, I was thinking there would still be a diagonal view to your living space and your rooms from garage roof if they look diagonally across the deck.
Yes, on one submission I did ask for that, like a little L shape, just to obscure that view. I think, you know, to be honest, I feel like Maria and I are the only ones compromising, and we've been worn down by the process, and it's constantly council coming back to us to provide compromises. My main problem with this privacy screen is the height. I've asked for it to be 1.8 meters tall rather than 1.6, and of sort of solid construction, so there are no gaps in between. I don't want to be in my kitchen diner or out in my garden and see people's heads or you know,
Yeah.
movement behind that screen. So I would rather it was a solid slat or whatever construction. And also, given I'm asking for it to be 1.8, set slightly back to the pillar that exists there, which is possibly maybe another 30 centimeters.
Right. So would that screen have to extend across to the steps that go from the deck up to the lawn in order to give you privacy in your living room? You see what, understand what I'm
Yeah, I
asking?
see what you mean. I would prefer it to go straight across. And I have previously
Okay.
asked for an L shape.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all, Ms. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from panel members?
It's Kerry Hammond speaking. I'd just like to ask a couple of questions about the drainage.
Yes.
And that wall that adjoins your two properties, is that still of concern to you?
Yes, we have an ag line on our property. The one that was on the plans to be laid on Maria's property wasn't laid. So we still have the ag line on our property. But, you know, I think a main concern with council saying, well, sort of reverting back on their previous promise of not allowing soil and grass up on the roof, is they're allowing soil and grass, but that garage roof has not been constructed in accordance with the CC, and there isn't adequate drainage up there.
So you're breaking up.
There,
You're breaking up.
not there.
Yes, you're right. I couldn't understand what she said then.
You might have to turn off your video and just do it as
Sorry,
audio.
am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. Oh, you're frozen, but yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I'll switch to another.
Yeah.
Sure.
So could you just repeat what you said before?
Okay. Sorry, Kerry. What I was saying is
About
there
the drainage.
is an ag line on our property.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
there's an ag line on our property. The one that shows on the plans. Oh, the roof drainage, yeah. So yeah, we do have concerns. Maria has particular concerns with the planting on against her, you know, boundary, because there's no drainage there as shown on the construction certificate. She's worried about water and soil overspill. I am concerned about the structural adequacy of the trench, the deep soil trench area, and the brick wall, given that there's going to be soil and plants and grass, and there isn't adequate drainage in our view. Council also previously said to us on 13th of March, when we had an on-site meeting at council offices, that they would not allow the soil and grass, because that then would reduce the extra height of 290 millimeters. So it's disappointing that they've now gone back on that promise.
Okay. And the finish of the wall from inside your property of their garage, I note that you sent a photograph and part of it's rendered. I assume that's the garage wall itself. And then there's brickwork. Yes. And then there's, I think that's that lead kind of lining, whatever that is. So was that surface supposed to be a little bit more, you know, given it's a common fence, was that
yes
supposed to be more unified?
I believe so. Maria's side has been rendered, and early on I asked Kelly if our side was going to be rendered, and she said yes. That was before the brick wall was constructed. So even if that part is rendered, because it's still plastic at the moment, it's going to look rather strange. The builder said he would render it all and paint it all. But to be honest, it would be good if it was made more aesthetically pleasing, but I think given the length of time and the circumstances, we're happy to deal with it ourselves.
Right. Okay. No doubt you've been very frustrated. I empathise with you.
Thank you, Kerry.
Some of those concerns that you have. And the transparent of the rails, as in on the dividing fence, does Maria want on the dividing part of her fence to still have the horizontal slats, or do both of you want fences that are not see-through?
Yes, that's definitely preferable. And Maria would like the straight setback. At the moment, council have given her a triangle, which on many occasions she said she wasn't happy with. Mm-hmm. So she would prefer a straight setback from that pillar that's at the middle of the garage, straight back towards my property. So square it off, make it a rectangle.
Okay, right. Thank you for
council seem very concerned with how the properties.
It's
Sorry,
gone.
out.
Can't hear again.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now. What was that last bit? Just council, you said council seemed very concerned with, and then you dropped out.
Okay. With, sorry, the streetscape. So what the property and that garage roof will look like from Gilderthorpe Avenue, rather than what it will look like from Maria's home and my home. So I think what we see is more important than somebody walking or driving up the street sees. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, Oliver?
Another
no.
one, if you're speaking for.
Sorry, Kevin, I asked Oliver if you had any questions.
Sorry. So yeah, sorry. I think you've answered my question. It was more around the triangular shape and the nature of the setback that you would seek on that side of the garage roof. And actually, you've covered the question that I also had, which is about streetscape related matters. So thank you.
All right, thank you. And sorry, Kevin, you had one more question?
Yes, if you're speaking for Maria, how high does she want the screen to the triangular planter?
Well, she doesn't want the triangular area. She would like it a straight setback so it becomes a rectangle.
Yes,
because
I'm aware
there's
of
an
that.
area there. Yeah, there's an area there where somebody could still be right up against her property, look down to her back garden, and create noise right on her living room and front bedroom. But yes, Maria would like a 1.8 screen, solid screen too.
1.8. Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. So now, I mean, obviously, just keeping in mind that obviously streetscape is a very important issue that panel has to consider, and we'll take on board in that as part of our deliberation your comments that you've made. We now have on behalf of the applicant Jenny Askin.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you, panel, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. I would just like to start by thanking the staff in the Planning Department for the work and the consultation that they've put in with this application. The application, as it is now before you, is the result of this rather lengthy process, and we welcome the recommendation that's outlined in the report. The report provides a very thorough assessment of the application and also of the objections received, but I'd just like to discuss a few points. Firstly, as a background, the proposal seeks to raise the finished floor level of the garage by 100 mil. This was required to satisfy condition 9 of the development consent that required the garage level to match the footpath level. The proposal also seeks to raise the finish level of the roof slab to the garage by 240 mil, and that's as a consequence of the change to the finished floor level and to meet the required clearance and BCA. In addition, the garage has been widened, but the door remains as approved with the additional width set behind the street wall. The next point to consider is that the roof of the garage was approved in the original DA for use as private open space. The modifications and the conditions that have been recommended will ensure that there's a higher level of amenity beyond that approved for the neighbouring properties. I'd also like to note that the wall to the southern boundary has been constructed as approved and is not proposed to be altered. So this height, coupled with the height and the setback of the privacy screen, ensures that no additional overshadowing will occur to the property to the south. I'd also like to mention that that setback also prevents those diagonal views that have been previously discussed, and an L shape wouldn't be required to inhibit those sight lines. With respect to the recommended conditions, as per my late correspondence, we request that the panel reconsider condition 2B(b), and that's to allow for planting to the southern setback to a height greater than 300 millimetres at mature height, but lower than the wall height along the southern boundary. This would just improve the appearance and soften the outlook from the house towards the privacy screen. As confirmed in my late correspondence, the soil depth can actually accommodate that height of planting, and also part of that area is deep soil planting. I'd also just like to make a comment in response to the triangular section. What's important to note is that that section is actually located forward of the front building line of the adjoining property and has been designed to ensure that that visual bulk is acceptable as viewed from that property, acceptable as viewed from the streetscape, while also allowing for a private open space that has been approved, albeit now it'll be in a reduced, it will be a reduced size. So to conclude, we feel the report has dealt thoroughly with the objections raised, and the recommendation provides an improved outcome beyond that originally approved. We request that the panel endorse this, with the ability to also improve the planting within the southern side setback. We are happy to answer any questions you may have. I also have the clients in attendance and they're happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. I'll just see if the panel members have any questions.
I do.
Yes, Kevin?
The question of the plans drawn by, is it AP squared or whatever the name is? The inaccuracies, how can we rely on that plan?
So you're referring, so A Square Planning is my company, we're the planning consultants, so we haven't drawn the plans, but I think you're referring to that sketch that appears in my late correspondence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I can respond to that, Jenny, if you like.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So sorry, my name's William Binstead. I'm one of the applicants. So
yes.
My partner Kelly is the other applicant. She's also an architect. So we submitted a fully detailed set of plans with the original 4.55 modification that was all developed in CAD, and I think there's no question about those. The subsequent amendments that we went through two separate processes with council to address the neighbours' concerns. We were providing sketches to that regard because essentially the options were very dynamic and changing, and this was the last set of sketches that we provided. I can see the issue with the scaling, and we can certainly check that and amend that, but I can confirm, because it comes from the as-built survey, and I think as the panel is aware, we're talking about a constructed structure here because we're seeking retrospective approval for the changes. That pillar exists now at 1.72 offset from that. It'd be the northeastern corner of the terrace.
Okay, so the planter box to number 4, which is also shown at 1.7 metres wide. So
I believe that would be the correct scale, that dimension.
Sorry, say that again.
I believe that would be the correct scale, that dimension, and in fact, you can refer to the photos, page 8, figure 6 in the council report, which shows the location of the first pillar from the south on the western extent of the terrace, and the screen sits just inside that at 1.74.
Okay, but the width of the planter to the privacy screen for number 4 is incorrect, is it? It's shown incorrectly on the sketch. If the 1.7 metres to the pillar of the balustrade from the northwestern corner is 1.7 metres, if that's correct, then the 1.7 metres shown for the setback of the privacy screen is wrong.
Yeah, I believe it to be the opposite. I believe the 1.74 is correct and the 1.72 is scaled incorrectly, and I believe the western quarter garden would actually be larger than represented. But we can, if the panel wishes, reissue that drawing to confirm that.
All right.
And I'd just like to make the point as well that the condition that's being recommended specifies that the privacy screen has to be set back 1.74, and it also requires all this information to go back for the approval of council prior to actually issuing the construction certificate. So it's not a matter that's going to be left to the private certifier.
Okay. I've got other questions, Madam Chair, but let the other panel members have a go.
All right, any other questions, Kerry?
Well, Jenny, you raised at the beginning, your first few sentences were about the garage floor and the pavement.
That's correct.
So from my observation, the pavement is much lower than the garage floor. So I'm just trying to work out about that, the entrance there, when you said that it was supposed to line up and it doesn't.
Okay, well, I've been advised that they do line up, and that was the finished floor level was raised to meet the footpath level, and that's what's actually being certified by the private certifier. So that's my understanding. I'm not sure if the client, has anything further to add. William,
so the issue was, so the builder matched obviously we're on a sloping street, Gilderthorpe falls to the west, and the builder matched the garage slab level to the high side of the footpath, which is shown on the as-built survey that was submitted with our original 4.55 modification, and the slab level is level from there for 3 metres of width for the opening of the garage. So it results in, I can't recall, but it's in the order of 30 or 40 millimetres higher at the western extent of the garage opening.
Right.
That's, and unfortunately, the level at which the garage slab was fixed at that intersection point on the eastern side was higher than the elevation detailed on the drawings for the development consent, the original development consent.
Okay, because I'm looking at a photo that I took, and to me it still doesn't meet the pavement at that edge that you said, and I understand that yes, it does drop away. Thank you. And the other question about making good the wall between the two properties, between number 2 and number 4, the surface of the brickwork and the rendering, is that in the plans?
Certainly. So if I could just address that point, as you can see with the neighbour of 54 Gilderthorpe, we rendered and painted that side of the common boundary wall. Our builder made 2 attempts to seek access to 4 Barrett Place to do the same for that boundary wall. However, access was not granted for those works. So we still remain happy to render and paint if the neighbours wish, and we did attempt to. And you can see through our actions at 54 Gilderthorpe that was our intent.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. Perhaps if the waterproofing and the drainage and everything isn't quite worked out yet, maybe that's the reason why it's difficult to negotiate that. Thanks.
Sure. I'd also like to address the waterproofing and the stormwater drainage discussion in the CC. I don't know if now is the appropriate time.
Yeah, that would be good. That was the question I had. So if you could just...
Sure. Yeah, so the condition of consent obviously requires a stormwater plan to be included in the CC drawings, which it was. The entirety of the roof of the garage, or the green roof, has been waterproofed since the development was substantially completed. And the stormwater, it's effectively no stormwater has spilled in the last year that we've been sitting there with a waterproof roof with no further landscaping, obviously because of the modification application in the stop works order. So there's just no evidence that it's not built in accordance with the CC and that it's creating a stormwater nuisance to our neighbours. The stormwater system's working effectively. The roof drains into the deep soil area. The deep soil area has subsoil drainage, which goes into a pit, which then goes out into the street, which is tapped into a stormwater pit, as per our civil works application to council, just like the runoff from our roof. So we note the neighbours' concerns, but except for the water that physically falls on the external walls of the garage and drains then obviously onto the boundary, there's just no evidence or physically nothing coming off the roof. And I see no reason, there is no reason for that to change once the landscaping is established on the top of the roof, and the design and the intent and what's been constructed is with the intent for it to be a green roof and for it to be hydraulically appropriate to deal with the rain that falls on it. So, and obviously with the changes in the landscaping, should this be approved, then there'll have to be a restoration of that stormwater plan and condition in accordance with the consent conditions to ensure that any changes from the original plan are considered with the performance of that.
Oh.
So any other questions? Oliver, have you got a question?
Not from me, thank you.
And Kevin, you said you had another question?
Yes, I did. The agricultural pipe behind the retaining wall of your garage that's on number 4. You've agreed to remove that. How do you propose to do that and retain the stability of your retaining wall?
Yeah, thank you for the question and the opportunity to clarify this point, because there has been private correspondence between the respective solicitors of ourselves and number 4 Barrett Place. And almost 6 months ago, we confirmed to the neighbours that there is no agricultural line on either their property or number 54. Our builder and our engineer both endorsed that. What the confusion comes from, the original development consent drawings, or the approved consent, detailed an agricultural line not on our property, at the base of the wall on the neighbour's side under their lawn with respect to both 54 and number 4. Our engineer picked up that was essentially not appropriate and removed that subsoil drainage from his drawings, which are in the CC issue if you wish to see. And that subsoil drainage resides under the garage floor slab within the extents of our property. So for us, the matter is closed. But that agricultural line, that is the advice that we have from our builder and our engineer, and the CC drawings are consistent with that. And the CC drawings take precedence. The development consent drawings are not the drawing set that shows the stormwater detail.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I'd also like to address the question of structural adequacy of the southern boundary wall. So in the same letter, we provided a certificate from our engineer for the development, the structural engineer, certifying the stability of the southern boundary wall. So, and I note council has also included a requirement in the additional conditions were this modification to be approved for the same certificate to be issued to them and the certifier, which we already have, which I have no problem in doing. And that was provided 6 to 8 months ago as well to our neighbours, and we have had no correspondence back following the provision of that certificate.
Okay.
Right.
With your permission, Madam Chair, one more question. I put to the owner of number 4 the issue that the garage roof, if it's used for recreation by people standing on top of it, I think it's been agreed it's 240 millimetres higher than the original consent, which enables people to look, if they're standing on that, they can look diagonally across the deck on the subject property to the front or the living rooms of number 4.
Yes.
And I asked the owner of number 4 if the privacy screen needed to be extended across to where the steps are from the deck up onto the garage roof, so that that diagonal view isn't possible. And she said, yes. What do you say to that? As the owner,
Are you addressing the applicant? Is that question to me?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, yeah. So we, in our original application, we submitted some elevations which showed the viewpoints from our original location for the screen in the 4.55. And you can see that that view angle is very oblique to the rear windows of 4 Barrett, and actually would not create, in our perspective, I guess, and the planning advice we've received, a privacy issue in that regard. And obviously with our current amendment to our submission, the screen is for the full extent east to west of the elevated terrace.
And just, I think the setback as well needs to be noted. So the setback actually reduces that oblique view. Given that it's 1.74 metres off that southern boundary, it actually inhibits sight lines in that oblique view, as opposed to what's been approved.
Okay. Yeah, it's a bit difficult to assess because we don't have a drawing that shows us the location of number 4. Of the house on number 4.
Yes, but just to respond to that, this sketch could actually be considered when you're deliberating with the full set of drawings that have been submitted, and they indicate the outline of number 4. So you can actually see how that screen with the setback inhibits that sight line.
I can also add that the rear setback of both houses is the same. So as part of our original consent, the rear wall of both houses aligns.
Yes. Okay. But the deck of number 2 is beyond that, isn't it?
That's correct. So our deck is further to the west. I don't know what the dimension is, but slightly further to the west, extends further to the west than the number 4.
If I can just jump in, Kevin, if you look at figure 7 in council's report on page 8, the lower photograph on page 8, I think that might assist us.
Can somebody bring that up? I haven't got it to hand.
I think, Kevin, this is something we can deal with in the deliberations.
Okay.
I think it's really just if you have any further questions of the applicant at this stage.
Thanks. No, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. So that concludes the public meeting. As I said in my opening, the meeting will now be closed, and the panel will consider all the issues that have been raised, and our decision and the reasons for our decision will be placed on council's website as soon as possible. So the